you have a good shape of your newspaper to get tape out. So what you're going to do at the start of every class from now on is start layering your table on the side with tape. If you have extra when it's time for you to go to lunch at the end of the hour, you should not peel it all up and make a tape roll. In fact, what you should probably do is leave it right where it is, because if you see on the 8th grader shelves, they're starting to use newspaper and tape as well for a different project. So they'll just use this rather than wasting it, because this would be a lot of waste to have. And all of you brought in a roll of tape for a reason, and that's because you'll probably be using, especially on bigger masks, more than even one full roll of tape. We go through a lot on this project. So you can't see all of it under there, but even if you can look inside of this mouth, and just see even how much tape was just put right there. And that was just in one tiny spot. So, I kind of know there's a lot. Alright, the pieces of tape that I was pulling off were long enough so that it could stretch around and over newspaper. If you're ripping off little pieces like this, it's not going to really hold anything down. You guys could get your own stool, would be a good idea. Christian, you can just grab another one. Alright, so then I've got my tape kind of surrounding me, and then I need to decide, I would be looking at my front and side view to see how much I need to build this out. So look at the transformation, even though you guys don't have this edging around it right here. Look at from this all the way to this is how much you have to build. What you shouldn't worry about quite yet is who cares about details like this is the hyena, their little fur on top. You don't have to worry about the ears, even the tip of the nose, even the teeth. You're just worrying about the form of how much you're having to stretch out the face. So I know I have to pile on newspaper, but how you pile it on makes a big difference. So crunchy pieces like this, as I was saying, don't work quite as nicely as a softer newspaper. It's more moldable if you can think about it in terms of clay almost. This works like almost how soft clay would work versus like trying to use hard clay. Alright, so there's a couple of ways that you could crunch up newspaper, and I know it sounds funny to use it like there's a right or wrong way to crunch newspaper, but if I take an even half sheet right here, I could take this newspaper and crunch it up into a tiny, tiny little ball of newspaper, and if I wrap tape, it could probably be even tinier. So how come I could make the same amount this big, or if I just lightly did it, it could be this. What am I doing differently between this and this? Good, so it's the pressure. It's like how, like same thing if you wanted clay to be flatter, you would press harder or roll more on a rolling pin. Well, with the newspaper, I'm putting more pressure and squeezing all the air out, or I'm using some of the air there. I also strategically made this happen. I don't know if any of you have used like little hamburger-looking buns like this in fires. I used to make fires like this when I was little. Like we'd roll up little pieces of newspaper and put it in if we didn't have logs. But the reason I call it a hamburger bun is because it's kind of got this flat part right here. I was strategically doing that for a reason, so I didn't have to use as much tape. This one's got like flailing pieces of newspaper out everywhere if I try to put this on, versus a piece that has a smooth top. So what I was doing is, I'll take a few more pieces so I get a larger section at a time. And these ads, it would be way nicer to have full sheets, but I don't think we have a lot of options here, so I'm just going to stack a few. Alright, I'm going to target my eye on Garfield right in the center here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to make sure all my ends go towards the middle of Garfield right here. So I'm going to fold in my ends towards the middle. Garfield's starting to disappear, but I know he's in the middle. And that's how, if I flip it over to the other side, all the ends are right here. Now I have a smooth layer on this side. So I was focusing on just doing it in one part. Now this might not cover your entire face, but unless you have a really specific monkey that has like a kind of human-esque face, it's probably mostly going to get covered up right away with newspaper anyways. That's why if you pop out your mask and it's not perfectly smooth and shiny, we're going to cover it instantly. So right over the top of my mask right away, the first step is to get rid of the human face, and I'm going to put half the tape on the newspaper. You guys won't have this ridge because yours will be popped out of the mold, but you can wrap it around the back. If it bothers you at the end of this project that the tape is showing on the back side of it, this one doesn't have any tape showing, you could just plaster around the ridge. We don't have to worry about building the back half of the face. It's going to stay like this on the back. It's going to be open. Alright, so 2 pieces probably wouldn't be enough for me to secure. I feel like later this would get really loose. But one thing you don't have to do is mummify. So it would be a really big waste of time to sit and take a roll of tape and wrap it around and around. So probably just 4 or 5 pieces would be enough to secure it for right now. But some people have a really hard time thinking about 3D in terms of like something big. So if you had something like a bird, kind of like I showed on the chalkboard the other day, someone might be tempted to be like, oh, if I put eyes here and a beak sticking out, I don't know, that looks pretty done. But most of you are going to have to go much farther away. So don't think about it flat anymore. Think about 3D and building a big amount on so it sticks out further like a sculpture. So that means I have to do a couple of things to transform. Some of you who are up close and can see this next to this, what do you think would be my next step in making this become bigger or more like the shape that's in front of me right here? What else would I have to do? Levi? And where do you think I should start? Because right now I put a wad here, but what's still different about like the first part of the shape? Yeah, it's still kind of skinny. Well, I keep calling it a bear. Hyena's face is not quite so skinny. So another trick you can do with newspaper, rather than to just crumple it up, is to twist it. So if I take a couple sheets, kind of almost like how we made coils, rather than rolling it, because then it'll just be a skinny tube and then flatten out, is to twist the newspaper instead. So when you twist it, it gets a little bit thicker, and then I can wrap it around the outside of the head so that it gets wider. Same thing is I'm just going to strap on some tape. Even tape is kind of strategic. What I'm not doing is just like lightly laying the tape on like this and then kind of being like exaggerative of how you would just set the tape on. But I am stretching it. If you can almost imagine tape becoming stretchy and putting it on and then, not pulling that hard, but pulling to wrap around the back so there's some tension. That's how you're going to keep stuff on. And I feel like watching me do it, it sounds silly, like of course you would pull the tape. But a lot of people, when they build these masks, they wonder why they're having problems, and it's because it's not sturdy enough. You're not pulling and stretching the tape around it. Same for little pieces. Like, that's not going to do anything for me, just a waste of tape. All right. So I've got the top part. Need a little bit more to fill in the bottom. Would you start ripping me some pieces of tape up? I'm going to rip some pieces of tape up. All right. Even if let's say this is wide enough now, and I did a few more rings around it, it's still really pretty flat. So we said we obviously have to get more newspaper. I don't know if it's because it seems more tempting to crunch up paper really little, but I've also seen a lot of people do, I'll show you a couple ways I've seen people do the next step to add more newspaper on. But it doesn't usually work very well. Again, I'm not mummifying it. Oops, not mummifying yet. Just slowly adding tape on so it doesn't stick out. I've seen two ways. One is they either take, at this point, a bunch of pieces and they do what I said and they crumple up all these little balls of newspaper and they start filling it in, and then they've got this like really weird lumpy ridgy project. Or, like I said, some people have a hard time with 3D, so they'll make like what they think is a hamburger bun, but they'll make it this really pristine, crisp little piece of paper like this. And they'll do it the right way so it's flat on one side, but it'll be so flat it has no air in it. And this would take me forever. Like say I was making a shark mask and I had to come way out here. That would take me super long. So instead, I'm going to take multiple sheets at one time, open them up. Actually, this piece is like perfect right here. So now I have a lot of places that I can trap air in. I have probably like 3 layers of newspaper here. I'm going to do one giant hamburger bun, so smushing all of this towards the center. And this goes much faster than either way that I just said. Now, you don't have this perfect like half a round basketball shape maybe necessarily for your project, but you could even use it in strategic places. Maybe you have a really big forehead on your animal and you want to just start strapping it up here on the forehead. Or maybe you have a chipmunk and you have huge cheeks and you end up starting to pack the side of the face. You don't have to keep on building it up into a mound if your face doesn't stick out very far. That's okay. And then some of you, I even said, you could flip and turn your face this way. What would be good animals, do you think, if your face was this way? Okay, maybe if you have a salamander with a wide face and then you would start to build your mountain out this way.
Maybe a frog.
A frog would be a really good one because their face sticks out kind of like a little mountain and then their eyes are up on top of their head. Anything else that's sideways? Like a lizard type of shape, that might be a good one too, and you might have to just build that chin underneath it. I've seen other snakes be used like this before too, and then I've also seen even like a hippo, if they do their forehead really big right here and then a large bulk down at the bottom. What I'm noticing with my ring right now is this is starting to pop off, so I'm going to take a few pieces of tape that they ripped out for me and make sure that it's wrapped around the outside so it doesn't slide off. Alright, so I think I'm going to go for the next piece. I'm just going to tape one more piece on so that you can kind of see at least how many pieces of newspaper that it's taking to even get my face to be this far. Again, to get it to attach to the next layer, I'm stretching the tape out, making sure it's wrapping behind. So probably once you get higher layers, the bigger pieces of tape are even better. And I'm kind of bracing it even against my body too so that I can hold the other side of it while I'm taping it. Alright, so on Monday, when you guys actually are able to start building and you pop out your mask, you probably will not ever even think about eyes or nose or ears. But I do want to show you one thing with cardboard before I'm all the way done. Plaster, how are you guys doing? You want to shut the door there, Lance? Yep. Thank you. Okay. So it's getting there. Let's just say I made the face wide enough, the cheeks are wide enough, the forehead is big enough, but I want to start to get that muzzle out. I either could start wrapping a whole bunch of newspaper just in this part. I think I'm probably good with both sides. Thank you. I could do newspaper, or can anyone see what this one might have done, especially because they have the mouth open? Yep, cardboard. So it's going to look like a beak at first, and some of you, do any of you have birds? Bears? Okay, if you have a bird, cardboard would be obviously a good start. But I wouldn't even finish with cardboard because nothing's probably as thin as a slab of cardboard, even an animal's beak. So I'm going to cut out a round shape that probably looks like a beak at first for my muzzle. Does anyone have really big muzzles on their animals? Like they stick out really, really far? Frogs might a little bit. What's yours? Whales? Yeah, yours would be probably a really good one for cardboard because yours is going to come out like way farther. Alright, so this looks kind of like a duck bill right now, but I cut it longer on purpose because I wanted it to be able to be attached. This would be a really hard thing to tape on. It would just like kind of flap up and down if I taped it on like this. So instead, I want more surface area to tape it to. I'm going to fold it so that I actually have something to tape it onto. And I'm strapping it down on one side, but I probably also want to flip it and tape it underneath. And then when you're trying to attach things onto, especially such like a flat surface, you probably should tape in some different directions. So rather than just going across, I'm going to kind of wrap the tape around in different ways too. Even though cardboard is a little sturdier than newspaper, it's still flexible, so if I needed to get like a round shape out of this, I could make it rounder. This would be at like more towards the end, but right now this would be like a top flap, and then I would probably need to make a bottom one for the lower jaw. But I shouldn't leave it like this. So instead, what I'm going to do is still take newspaper that's left over and start to even pad the top parts of these. So same process that I was doing to the mask, I'm going to do to the other parts. So wrapping the tape around, stretching it. Does anyone have an animal right now that they're thinking they don't really quite know how they're going to get the form of it quite right? Yep. Well, it's a turtle. Okay, so say yours will be like you don't necessarily need a muzzle to come out or anything, and you don't even need